and welcome to my book haul video. These are all of the books that I have collected on our about 6-week trip down through Florida. Something that I've been intentional about doing over the last few years is finding books that relate to the areas in which we are traveling. So for instance, when we went and camped by the Mississippi, I read Life on the Mississippi by Mark Twain, which is a really phenomenal nonfiction story about his life, taking off some time as a writer and just going back down the boats of the Mississippi. When we went to Disney recently, I took a vintage Disney book and had the characters sign it. It's something that I call books on location, and I've been doing it for about 10 years. When we first went to Florida as a family about 10 years ago, I got A Land Remembered. It is the quintessential Florida historical fiction. It is intriguing. It's not the most fast-paced, but it is very information-rich and also kind of sad. And I thought for this trip to Florida that we're on, I wanted to find some new books to read. So I know at the beginning I promised a haul, and here it is. Some of this haul, however, has books that I purchased for the books on location concept. The rest of these are used books that I found at little free libraries. And just a quick note, Hoot by Carl Hessen is a perfect books on location choice for any middle graders going to Florida. The Everglades, River of Grass by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas is a book that I purchased while in Florida. This book is the history of the Everglades. And again, general theme here is that it's pretty bleak, but her writing this book was what made some environmental changes. Politically, I think there is improvement within the Everglades system due to her writing this book. Next, I grabbed The Tales of the Everglades. This is just a short little vignettes collection of stories on the Everglades. I also took this to the Visitor Center and got the stamp of the Southernmost Mainland Visitor Center, which I thought was a cute touch. The last book that I got while we were in the Everglades is called Death in the Everglades, which, again, not a happy book. You can tell that by the title. This is the story of the first John James Audubon warden that was martyred in the Everglades, trying to save birds from basically being massacred. My main takeaway from this is that fashion decisions that rely on killing creatures is really not sustainable. I'm not sure what else to say about this book. I think The River of Grass is probably a better book if you're looking to read something about the Everglades. Am I glad I read it? Yes. Will I read this again? No. And just a quick note for anyone who's a homeschooler and watching this. The Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv is a phenomenal read. I highly recommend it. A Land Remembered by Patrick D. Smith is this sweeping family saga. It goes through generations of a family. It also talks a lot about the ruggedness and the danger and also the kind of cowboy feel of Florida before it was invaded by real estate tycoons and really covered in a lot of concrete. My next books on location purchases were at the Ernest Hemingway Home and Museum. I purchased The Old Man and the Sea, which is the last book that was published before Hemingway passed away. This story is very introspective. It is the story of a man who is alone in a boat trying to catch a fish after having many months of bad luck. It's probably the best Hemingway book I've read so far. I also purchased The Sun Also Rises, which is Hemingway's first published novel. This book is full of debauchery, and instead of self-introspective, it is about self-aggrandizement. The cover really is indicative of what happens to the characters as they travel from Paris to Spain for bullfights. For the used books that I found at little free libraries, I found 2 Mercedes Lackey books. It was the second and third book in a series, and I don't have the first one, but I love Mercedes Lackey. She is sort of OG of the 80s fantasy, and I couldn't help but pick them up. I figured I would grab the first book in the series on Thrift Books when I got home. Next, I found this beautiful hardcover with a really nice dust jacket of The Fall of Gondolin by J.R.R. Tolkien. Next, I found The Silver on the Tree by Susan Cooper. This is a middle grade fantasy series. One of the books actually won the Newbery, and I have started that series at Christmas, so I'm excited to continue it. I also found this really beautiful hard copy of Redwall. We already have Redwall, but who can resist a beautiful hard copy with a nice dust jacket? And then this book, which is also part of the Redwall series, The Salamandastron by Brian Jacques. It was also with this, and I thought just the, again, hardcover with the dust jacket was just too beautiful to pass up. I also grabbed this Aunt Dimnity book, The Vampire Hunter by Nancy Atherton. This is a book that's in a series that I've read one of. I keep finding them at little free libraries, so I don't know if that means they're not the greatest. But having that bat on the cover of it, it just looked like such a cute little cozy fall read. I also found Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read this. I think there is a trigger warning of parental death in it, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle the sadness, but I grabbed it anyway because it gets good reviews. I also grabbed this Patty Callahan Once Upon a Wardrobe. I've actually read this book. It is historical fiction about someone who meets C.S. Lewis and really kind of uncovers the background of the stories of Narnia. But this was signed in a little free library, so I was like, well, I'm going to go ahead and get this and put this on my shelf. So I also grabbed C.S. Lewis's Great Divorce. I love his nonfiction work. This is actually one that I have not read, and so I'm excited to read it. It's not in the best condition, but it certainly is worth grabbing. I also found these vintage Heidi Grows Up and Heidi's Children, which I didn't even know Joanna Spyri had sequels to Heidi. But these copies, I mean, they're old, but oh my goodness, the illustration and the artwork and the dust jacket, I could not pass those up. So I grabbed those as well. So books on location is something that I hope to continue more of as we plan for more trips this year and even beyond that. If you have any books on location, books that you've enjoyed reading to give yourself that deep connection with an area that you're visiting, I would love to hear them. You know, anything that you have found particularly moving or invigorating for any of the trips that you've been on, please leave those in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.